Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Friday edition of From the Boardroom to the Locker Room as we look ahead to what hopefully will be a fantastic sporting weekend. That, of course, is weather permitting. It's been a bit miserable, hasn't it, at the ICC Champions Trophy? A couple of matches have been abandoned without a ball being bowled, and in the middle of all of that, what a game between the now out of the tournament England, and I'm sure you can hear a bit of a smile in my voice on that one, because what a performance it was by Afghanistan. They were absolutely fantastic. They were in desperate trouble, were Afghanistan, early on in the game. In fact, at one stage, it didn't look as though Afghanistan were going to get to 200. They were, as I say, in lots of trouble. Geoffrey Archer took 3 for 64, wickets for Jamie Overton, Adil Rashid, and Liam Livingston. And at 37 for 3, you would have thought that that was Afghanistan dead and buried, and England would have gone through to what would have ended up being a quarterfinal against South Africa. Well, it's still going to be an important game for South Africa. I'll explain to you in a minute why. But as far as Afghanistan are concerned, now an opportunity for them to take on Australia, and a win for them there could really throw the whole scenario of the ICC Champions Trophy to turmoil for Australia and England, and even in a weird way. It depends, of course, on how that game goes. Mathematically, South Africa could also still be knocked out of the competition. Highly unlikely, though, but that, of course, is still a possibility. And then, of course, the magnificent innings to rescue the ship for Afghanistan by Ibrahim Zadran, 177. He got off 146 deliveries, 12 fours and 6 sixes. He really played an innings of great stature for a young man and made himself a big name in Afghanistani cricket. And then the England innings, every time it seemed to get going, and at one stage when the incredible Joe Root, who also got a big 100, albeit suffering from cramp towards the end of his innings, off that horrible 111 balls where he got out on. I don't know how superstitious Joe Root is, but cricket commentators love to use 111 and 222 as superstitious ones, unless, of course, you're an Australian when it's 123. And then cameo innings, particularly Jamie Overton, who's 32 from 28, looked as though he, along with Root, were going to steer the ship. Wasn't to be, though, and a tremendous rearguard action from Afghanistan in a topsy-turvy game we've been waiting for an awful long time, through the Betway T20 and into this ICC Champions Trophy and even in tournaments before, for a nice close finish. And my goodness, we got that in the game. England eventually being bowled out with 1 ball to spare for 317. And thanks to Azmatullah Omarza, 5 for 58. That's a brilliant bowling performance in 9 overs and 5 balls, taking his team home. Jonathan Trott, the former South African and England international, not an international for South Africa, I might add, but played a lot of cricket here in South Africa, born in South Africa. What a great win it was for him, especially after that World Cup defeat in which they were on course to beat Australia. And then that magnificent innings of Glenn Maxwell, almost similar in a way to Joe Root's, although the one got 200, the other one got 120, and the Australians won that game, which I think a lot of people say you need to learn from your mistakes. And perhaps Afghanistan did learn from that result, and that's how it helped them get through the match. Yesterday's game, of course, it was hosts Pakistan finishing bottom of the table. Their last Champions Trophy group match against Bangladesh was abandoned without a ball being bowled in Rawalpindi. Rain messed that one up, and if you had a chance to see what the field looked like, you could have swum on that field. It was so desperately wet. Well, it was abandoned without a ball being bowled, ensuring the host country's title defense, excuse the pun, ended with a wet whimper. Pakistan, who won the tournament in 2017, lost to New Zealand and arch rivals India to finish bottom of the 4-side in Group A. Their last match, there was only pride to play for both teams. Bangladesh similarly out of the running for the semi-final. So it's New Zealand and India that are through. They still have to play each other. That, I think, is going to be a very interesting encounter between those two sides. Because, of course, they most probably will rest some of their players if they can, although there's not such a big squad. And it'll give New Zealand, if anything, an opportunity, unlike any of the other teams, to play outside of Pakistan. So if New Zealand do get the opportunity to play there and then go through eventually to the final, and if India make it through to the final, then they will have had that opportunity of playing outside of Pakistan, which is completely and absolutely unfair. But be that as it may, we've had that discussion many times before. But before that, a game that was currently underway today, Australia and Afghanistan, as I say, a big opportunity for the Afghanistanis. A victory over Australia today, run rate and all the rest of it come into account. That could be very interesting. The best result, of course, for South Africa would be if that game got washed out. I mean, that just really helps South Africa's cause. And then on Saturday, depending on the result of today's game, South Africa will play England in what is a dead rubber for England, but could still have meaning for South Africa. The question remains a big one. Is Heinrich Klaasen going to be fit? If South Africa, by the time the game is underway tomorrow, need to win, do they take the chance and play him? Do they rest him for another game, keep him for the semi-final? All of that remains to be seen. We do know how South Africa have performed with players who are not 100% fit in tournaments gone by and how dearly it's cost them. Have they learned their lesson? I'd love to say they have, but I doubt they have. That just seems to be the way South African selectors think. Sunday's game, as I say, New Zealand versus India, and that's it. Round robin done and dusted. Tuesday, it's the first semi-final, and Wednesday, second semi-final, and then Sunday, the 9th of March, the final of the ICC Champions Trophy. Quickly done and dusted this tournament with only 8 teams, top 2 in each group going through. And it, so far, I must say, been a run feast, lots of hundreds, lots of centuries, and it's been really good for the game. And hopefully this weekend will be that as well. Now, also underway today, Western Province against the Dolphins. That game was supposed to happen on Sunday. The Cricket South Africa brought that forward to today. And then tomorrow, it's the Tuskers against the Garden Route Badgers, the Storm against the Northern Cape Heat, Warland against the Dragons, the Lions against the Knights, and the Cricket South Africa emerging 11 are in action on Sunday against the Impalas. The Inyatis of the Eastern Cape play the Rhinos, Titans up against the Warriors. And as I say, more action through the week with the international cricket. New Zealand's women play the Sri Lankan women. And we're pretty much not a long way away, bearing in mind next Sunday is the final of the ICC Champions Trophy. And then it's the IPL. So lots of great cricket on the way. Rugby action for this weekend, as I've mentioned previously in the week, it is a big weekend for the local derby teams in the competition. And it, of course, is on the 1st of March, the Lions and the Sharks, the Bulls and the Stormers. But there are a couple of games later on tonight where Munster take on Edinburgh and Zebra take on the Dragons. The only reason those 2 matches is because of the international rugby fixtures that, of course, are on hold for a while. The big news, of course, of the Six Nations, which takes a break until next week, is that Ireland will play France, Scotland will play Wales, and then on Sunday, England will play Italy. So not a lot of rugger coming up over the weekend, which I guess you would think international rugby, that is. But then Saturday, as I mentioned, Lions, Sharks, Bulls, Stormers. That's the 2 big local derbies in South Africa. Leinster play Cardiff. Ulster play Llanelli Scarlets. Connaught play the Benetton rugby side. And Glasgow Warriors play Ospreys. And then on Monday, it's back to Varsity Cup action with the Shimlers against UJ. Wits play NWU. Marties play CUT. And Ikeys play Tuckies, the Tucks. So that's Varsity Cup rugby. As far as the log situation is concerned with regards to the United Rugby Championship over the weekend, it can change, bearing in mind, of course, that the Bulls, the Lions, the Sharks, and the Stormers are all in action. But the big news, and I'm sure there'll be quite a few sad rugby fans around South Africa over the last few days, with the news that Stephen Kitchhoff's rugby career is over. I'm sure it's not the last time we're going to see Stephen Kitchoff on a rugby field. I'm sure he'll be on the field as a coach going forward, certainly there as a supporter, but to actually play, fortunately, his days are over. There'll be many players around the world who'll be happy about that. Not happy that he was injured, of course, but happy about the fact that the tightheads won't be propping up against one of the best loosehead props that's played the game. Back to the United Rugby Championship. Leinster, top of that pile, played 11, won 11, way out in front, 10 points ahead of their nearest rivals, the Glasgow Warriors, with the Bulls a further 2 points behind, 12 points behind Leinster. So the battle is currently on for second place, and the reason for that, of course, is second place gives you that opportunity of having home advantage come knockout stages of the competition. But obviously, if the top two teams get through, then the team top of the log will have that home ground advantage in the final. So the Bulls in third, the Sharks are now in fourth place, which is a great result for the Sharks, considering that their season didn't get off to the best of starts, and they have a game in hand. So 5-pointer, if they were to get that at the weekend, would rocket them up to 39 points, just a point behind the Bulls, bearing in mind, of course, they both play this weekend. Munster in fifth place on 31. Cardiff, Benetton, Scarlets, Edinburgh, all in still with a shout for those 8 berths. The Stormers now beginning to fall away from the pack with only 24 points, but the way the games go and the way the results can turn with the bonus points at hand, that obviously gives a big opportunity for some of those sides to leapfrog each other lower down on the log. So a reminder of those matches: Munster, Edinburgh tonight, Zebras, Dragons tonight, 25-10. Tomorrow, 2:30, Lions against the Sharks, and then 5 o'clock, the Bulls against the Stormers. So big action for 3 of those 4 sides, to be honest with you, going forward. Particularly the Sharks and the Bulls will be looking for wins. Leinster, Cardiff at 5 o'clock, 7:15, Ulster against Llanelli Scarlets, 25-10, 2 games, Connaught against Benetton, and then Glasgow Warriors against Ospreys. And then Saturday, the 8th of March, the United Rugby Championship sees the reverse of this weekend's action at Ellis Park. They go down to Durban, to the Shark Tank, for the Sharks against the Lions. That's on the 8th of March, and then a break until the 21st of March, when all the action resumes again in the United Rugby Championship. Now, if you were a regular listener to our show, you will have heard us chatting to Dale Hayes, and particularly chatting about what the weather was doing in Durban on Tuesday and Wednesday. Lots and lots of rain, and that, of course, was perhaps going to disturb the opening round of the SA Open. Well, it did. Delayed it for about 3 hours, and eventually the players got out on the course. Some of the best players in Europe, as well as some of the South Africans, the Investec South African Open Golf Championship. That is currently underway, and it does continue across the weekend, tomorrow and Sunday, the final day of that Investec South African Open. There is also on the USPGA Tour, the Cognizant Classic in Palm Beach. That's currently underway there as well. And of course, the European Tour, the DP World Tour, and the Sunshine Tour sanctioned Investec South African Open is what's on the DP World Tour. Next week, it's the Joburg Open, also part of the Sunshine Tour, and then the Arnold Palmer Invitational. That takes place at the Bay Hill Club and Lodge in Orlando, Florida. There's going to be a lot of sentiment there, of course, with all of the fires that they've had in the United States, and lots going on in the United States. So the Arnold Palmer, one of the greats of the game, his name attached to the Arnold Palmer Invitational. And as I say, on the DP World Tour and the Sunshine Tour, it is the Johannesburg Open. And the Joburg Open at that beautiful Houghton Golf Course in Houghton, Johannesburg. Very scenic golf course in terms of inner city golf course with long fairways, lovely greens, and some trees. I don't play a lot of golf, but I'm very fortunate when I do, and many years ago, I might add, I can notch up some names, and I actually played a round of golf at the Houghton Golf Course with, I think you might have heard of these two. Now, the one's name was Greg Norman, the other one was Ernie Els. Yep, claim to fame. We even played golf with Gary Player. He beat me, of course. Everybody beats me. Okay, so that's the golf over the weekend. Let's have a look at some tennis action for you. And Novak Djokovic is to play at Indian Wells. The ATP 1000 tournament confirmed that the Serbian shaking off injury concerns and resumes his hunt for his 100th singles title. 24-time Grand Slam winner, retired from the Australian Open semi-final against Alexander Zverev with a hamstring issue last month, lost in the Qatar Open first round last week, and he hasn't played without pain, he said in Doha, but his disappointing display raised concerns among fans that he would not play in the Southern California event. But the tournament organizers have gone with the headlines. A legend returns to the desert. Five-time Indian Wells winner Djokovic will aim to become the third man to claim 100 singles titles in his professional career. I bet you don't know who both of them are. I know you know that one of them is Roger Federer, I'm sure. And it's not Rafael Nadal, the other one. The great left-hander, Jimmy Connors, is the other one. Connors is the most, 109, Federer 103, and Djokovic 100 titles. Now, Casper Ruud was one of the top three seeds who left the Mexican Open early due to the effects of a stomach bug, while Alexander Zverev and Ben Shelton suffered early defeats at the ATP 500 in Acapulco. Last year's runner-up and second seed Ruud pulled out shortly before his match against Rodrigo Pacheco Mendes, sending the local favorite through to the quarterfinals. He was hoping to overcome the stomach illness that he had, but adding on Instagram that he waited until the last minute to be able to play. He hopes he comes back stronger and will be back in Mexico next year. I guess it's that Mexican food. Stay off the tacos, Casper. Stay off the tacos and the spicy stuff. Now, Wimbledon champion Barbara Krejcikova also withdrew from Indian Wells and Miami due to a back injury that's kept her out of action. The world number 16, a surprise champion at the All England Club last year, sustained the injury during the tour's Asian swing of tournaments and appeared hampered by it at the WTA finals in Riyadh, where she reached the semi-finals. The 29-year-old Czech skipped the Australian Open in January, saying she needed more time for her injury to heal. Austria's Julia Graba will take Krejcikova's place in the main draw Indian Wells, which begins on the 5th of March. The Miami tournament kicks off on the 18th of March. You're listening to the edition of From the Boardroom to the Locker Room. We'll have more for you after these.
Hey, Unique Tribe, ready to unlock new insights with family, relationships, and business constellations with our monthly workshops.
Join us on Saturday, 1st of March 2025 in Northcliffe, Randburg. We will send the address when you book.
The session runs from 1 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. It's 850 to constellate and 250 to participate, with beverages included.
Connect with at King Osiladi, at Igna Luminescence, and at Unique Yet Connected for an afternoon of transformation.
Book your spot now. Call 079-913-4934 or email innaluminescence.kinga@gmail.com.
Spaces are limited, so don't wait. Secure your place today.
See you there.
Hello everybody, don't forget to join us for the review of this weekend's sporting activities on From the Boardroom to the Locker Room, Central African Time, 6 to 6:30, wherever you catch your podcast. I'm Louis Karpas. Join me then. So, what else is coming up over the weekend? Well, I can tell you that it's nearly here. I can't wait. Formula One coming up in a couple of weeks' time down under in Australia. And earlier this week and through the course of the week, the boys have been out and about with their very fancy toys, and some of them in new uniforms, some with new livery, most of them driving their cars around the track looking though they've had like some kind of a brain injury with all sorts of things sticking out the side of the car. That's all to do with telemetry. Very, very expensive little aerials popping out of the side of the car, sometimes on the wheels, sometimes on the side of the car. It's all to do with the testing that they're doing to make sure that their cars are in action. And very interesting, the very first session, it was the new Mercedes driver, the youngster who's taken the place of Lewis Hamilton, who was the fastest, but that didn't last very long. Antonelli put in performance as he prepares for his rookie season. He clocked a fastest time in the morning of 1 minute 31.428 seconds. Liam Lawson, making his official debut as a fully fledged member of the grid for Red Bull, was second before the lunch break, about a thousandth of a second behind the Mercedes. And Lawson's new teammate, four-time reigning world champion Max Verstappen, took over for the afternoon session. And the Dutchman banked over 65 laps to finish today with the third quickest time overall behind the fastest man, Lando. Yep, Lando Norris in the papaya in the McLaren Mercedes. He was the fastest going into testing. And incidentally, For those of you who live in South Africa, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about now when I go, a load shedding. Well, I can tell you right now, load shedding in South Africa is something where the lights go out. Well, it happened at testing as well. George Russell went out. As he got onto the track, he radioed back to his team saying, I think I've got the wrong visor, guys. His team radioed back saying, no, you haven't. There's been a power failure. So no lights for a while, and they had to resort to torches in the garages, and eventually the power outage was a thing of the past. The teams came back out in Bahrain. So it's not just in South Africa where there is load shedding. All right, let's look at the local football scene here in South Africa, and some big news as far as the fate of the footballing fortunes. Of course, in the Nedbank Cup, which is the South African version of FA Cup, there's been a bit of a hold up there as Royal Am were put into liquidation, and then South African Revenue Services have put the club up for sale so they can recoup the money that's owed to them. And eventually the Premier Soccer League in South Africa, who looks after all of these events, decided enough is enough. And they booted Royal Am out of the Nedbank Cup, which has given Milford FC a chance to continue on. And they play Sekhukhune United on Sunday to try and catch up with that Nedbank Cup competition so they can carry on with that. But there's a big clash this weekend, as always in the South African footballing circles. Hot off the news, I might add, that the game between Chiefs and Pirates at Soccer City had 10,000, that's right, 10,000 more spectators in the stadium than safety allows. There has been an inquiry, but like everything else in South African football, it was just swept under the carpet, and it was like blamed on everybody else except the organizers, and the stadium said that there were fake tickets. Anyway, they had 100,000 people. They do not want to learn, do they? They've already had many deaths in South African football, particularly at Ellis Park. Well, hopefully this weekend there will be some form of normality, if there ever is that in South African football, because it's a heavyweight clash, albeit either Kaizer Chiefs or Mamelodi Sundowns need to really worry about the result of this game. Most probably Sundowns even less than Chiefs, because Chiefs are a bit of a flop at the moment, but Sundowns way out ahead. But it doesn't matter where these two sides are on the log. They do, along with Orlando Pirates, draw the biggest number of supporters. And that is the big clash of the weekend between Sundowns and Chiefs. It tops the action. The Amakosi ironically looking to do a big favour for their Soweto rivals, Orlando Pirates. Sundowns and Chiefs will meet at the Lucas Moripe Stadium in Tshwane on Saturday afternoon. The Brazilians hoping to add to their 15-point lead over nearest chasers Pirates at the top of the log. Isn't it sad? Extremely sad that a country that in 2010 hosted the Soccer World Cup and did an outstanding job, the top team in their country don't have a permanent home ground. Can you imagine Liverpool, top of the Premier League, playing in different venues every second or third weekend, moving around? Absolutely unacceptable. Unacceptable. Pirates have got their own stadium. It's far too small to host big matches, so they host it down the road in Soweto from the Orlando Stadium. But a travesty of justice that we had a Soccer World Cup here in 2010, and the majority of the sides in South Africa don't own their own stadiums in 2025. Right, I'm off my soapbox. Let's have a look at all of the other fixtures that are in the Betway Premiership this weekend. It is Stellenbosch FC tonight against Polokwane City. Tomorrow, Magesi plays SuperSport United. I've already mentioned Sundowns against Chiefs. Both those games kick off at 3:30. TS Galaxy play against Golden Arrows. Marumo Gallants play Orlando Pirates. Those two games at 5:30 and 5:45 respectively. And Richards Bay take on Chippa United in the late kickoff tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock. And on Sunday, AmaZulu play Cape Town City at 3:30 and Sekhukhune United against Royal Am. That has been postponed for obvious reasons. Now let's move across to England and the Premier League results through midweek, and Liverpool have continued on their merry way. Arsenal have once again frozen those guns of firing blanks at the moment. They drew with Nottingham Forest, a result that didn't really help either of those two sides, to be perfectly honest with you. It most probably helped Liverpool the most. Their 2-0 victory over Newcastle puts them way, way out front. And as I have mentioned before on this program, you can start engraving Liverpoo, just leave out the L, because, with Liverpool, there's always that opportunity. But it would be about as good as Wales winning the Six Nations this year, which clearly they can't. So I can't see any other team. But Liverpool equaling Manchester United's 20-time Premier League or First Division record, the top trophy in English football. Other results from that weekend fixtures: Manchester United won 3-2. They went a goal down very early, which seems to be a trend with Manchester United this year. Then they had a player sent off, eventually scoring just a moment or two into the second half, thanks to Harry Maguire. United holding out with 10 men for the whole of the second half to beat Ipswich Town by 3-2. Manchester City got an away win. They beat Spurs by 1-0, and Brentford and Everton drew 1-1, while on Tuesday, Southampton took another beating, this time at Chelsea. They lost 4-0 there. Wolves won, Fulham 2. Crystal Palace gave Aston Villa an absolute hiding, beat them 4-1, and Brighton 2, Bournemouth 1. Going into this weekend, the Premier League table looks like this. Even though they've played a game more, have Liverpool are on 67 points, way ahead of Arsenal, who have 54 points. That's 13 points the difference between the two. Arsenal do have a game in hand, so even if they win that game, which at the moment they're not doing, they're drawing all their matches, they will still put them 10 points behind Liverpool after 28 games. Nottingham Forest just behind, very well entrenched in third and fourth place, but there is still Chelsea, who are coming up from behind, and Newcastle. So you're looking at Forest with 48, Manchester City with 47, Chelsea 46, Newcastle 44, and of those sides, 3 of them are vying for 2 places in the top tier of English football to go through to Champions League action next year. So the fixtures for this weekend are obviously a bit postponed because of the FA Cup. The next time the teams are on the field will be Saturday, the 8th of March, a big game early on that Saturday when Nottingham Forest will host Manchester City. Big 6-point swing there. Brighton will play Fulham, Palace play Ipswich, Liverpool play Southampton. You can expect a goal fest for Liverpool there. Brentford against Villa and Wolves against Everton. 2 night games next Saturday. Sunday, Chelsea-Leicester, Spurs against Bournemouth, Manchester United against Arsenal. Big game there on the 9th of March. West Ham play Newcastle on the 10th. Now, the reason for that, of course, is this weekend. It is the most romantic. It is the oldest. It is the one that all the teams in England want to win. Yep. It is the FA Cup competition. Tonight, it's Aston Villa against Cardiff. Villa perhaps had their foot off the gas in midweek because they know the importance of the FA Cup match tonight. Tomorrow, the early kickoff at 2:15. Couple of games. Preston take on Burnley, who are flying in Division 1 of the Championship, and Crystal Palace against Millwall. And then at 5 o'clock, Bournemouth against Wolverhampton Wanderers, and then Plymouth Argyle have taken a huge step, beating Liverpool in the previous round. Can they be giant killers against Manchester City? They travel to Manchester to play Manchester City in the late kickoff on Saturday evening. And then on Sunday, it's Newcastle host Brighton and Manchester United host Fulham. While on Monday evening, Nottingham Forest play Ipswich Town. All of those matches in the FA Cup. Whatever it is you're doing this weekend, make sure you do it and be nice to each other. Until Monday, bye for now.